All right, we'll try this. It's Carrie here. I am doing Full Tilt Friday. The theme of this particular episode is the word audacious. And I've got with me my friend Mike McKnight, who has just wrapped up manning and chiefing the aid station down there for the Moab 240. That's the 72-mile mark, Indian Creek. So we've been about 24 hours.
Yeah, we've been here for 24 hours.
And Mike has I'll talk to him about a lot of different things, but we'll start with, how do I know you?
So we met through a mutual friend, Dax Hawk.
Yes.
Yeah, we've met at other races before, you and I, but like Dax was kind of the mutual friend that really connected us.
And when he met Dax, what were the circumstances?
So it was last year, 2019, the Bigfoot 200. We were at the top of the highest part of the course, and like this freak lightning storm came in. There was no forecast for it. We weren't prepared for it. I was like climbing up and seeing the lightning everywhere, and as I got to the top, Dax was like crouched down and like I like dropped to the ground and like freaked out when the lightning went off, and then I saw his head pop up. He was like, "Hey dude, let's run together."
You had Ben with you too at that point, didn't you? Or was it just you and Dax?
It was just me and Dax.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So we were by ourselves, highest point, freak lightning, like just lighting up. It was night, but the lightning was going off, and you could just see from miles away. It was just constant lightning strikes, and so we were terrified. We stuck together, and that was his first 200. So he kind of wanted to hang along for quite a while, and you were there, pacing and crewing him.
Yeah.
So we met there.
Yeah.
And then he brought us together a couple weeks ago.
The astounding thing about that race and that circumstance was I arrived, I forgot the aid station. It's somewhere 140 miles in or something like that. Maybe a little less.
I think it was less than 100 because it was the first night.
I arrived and Sarah and Ben were there.
Yeah.
And his truck pulled up and he had the Moab, the Tahoe, and the Bigfoot stickers on the back, along with Western States. I'm like, oh. And then Sarah popped out. So I knew that it was Mike, because I'd been watching the race. And I knew that you and Dax were together for a little while, but that you had probably gone ahead. And you had game face on. You were on a mission. Because that was the first of the three.
Yeah.
That was the first of the Triple Crown. And I remember thinking, oh, well, Dax should be along, not too long. I think he was like an hour, 90 minutes behind you or something like that. But here's what astounded me, and here's where we'll start talking about this audacious concept in a moment. You left, maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours ahead. And there was less than half of the race to go. And by the time you finished the race, what was your time on that one?
51 hours.
Was that the course record?
Yeah.
He smoked the course record, 51 hours. And when I think Dax came in something like 13 hours later, so you put something like that. You put in more than 10 hours into Dax, who was running really well at that point. So you were already committed to the whole Triple Crown,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And was your goal to just go out and set course records on each one, or was that just a...
No. So I learned it. So I did Western States.
Yeah.
A month and a half before. It's about a month and a half before, and I had a terrible race. But I learned at Western States. Like I used to be very particular. Like gave my crew like, here's this aid station. My A goal is this time. My B goal is this time. My C goal is this time. And I got into Western States, and like I was just slowly getting away from all those goals. And I started just to like shut down and get kind of frustrated, and like I really like backed off. And so after Western States, I learned like I really get inside my head if I'm like a little bit off.
Yeah.
When in reality, if I didn't get in my head, I probably could have made up some time. And so at Bigfoot, I like printed off my splits from 2017, the year I did it the first year. I didn't even look at it. I just gave it to my wife and Ben Light and was like, hey, this is what I did 2 years ago. Hopefully I'm going to be around a couple hours. And I just left it at that. I didn't set splits. I didn't set goals. And I was like, don't tell me what kind of track I'm on until towards the end. And so my goal was to get under 60 hours.
Yeah.
But I wasn't like trying to figure out if I was on track for that.
Yeah.
And so finally, like mile 180, I had the lead. Ben picked me up to pace me, and I was just like, okay, Ben, I have a good lead. I'm feeling good. Like, you can tell me what kind of pace I'm on. And he's like, dude, like, you might get under 50 hours. And I seriously had no idea. So, like,
So was the A goal 60 or?
The A goal was 60.
That is insane. And you came in 9 hours ahead.
Yeah. So I literally had no idea till mile 180 that I was on pace for that.
So for context, Mike goes out and smokes the field for Bigfoot and sets a course record. And then a month later, you hit Tahoe, right?
Tahoe, yeah.
And how did that one go?
So I went with the same concept. It's just like, don't tell me anything.
But where do you go though? I mean, what are you thinking while you're running?
I mean, I had people joking like, "Hey, you should try and win them all," and like I was just like, "That's funny. Like that's not gonna happen." And so, like I just wanted to beat my 2017 cumulative time for the Triple Crown.
Okay. What was the 2017 cumulative time?
It's 205 hours.
Jesus. So that was what Dax did last year, essentially.
So he beat my time.
Oh, really? And you won the Triple Crown in
2017.
Interesting.
Like, you know, aside from the time I set last year for the Triple Crown, he has the second fastest time for the Triple right now.
And your time after we accelerate through Tahoe, you basically did the same thing.
50 hours.
Set a new course record.
So I set a...
For that direction?
Yeah, for that direction. The counterclockwise, I believe.
And then came out to Moab and won Moab in male course record time. I think Courtney still. Actually, you were in that race the first year?
Yeah, when she smoked everybody.
Yeah, both of us were in that race. Yeah. I remember that actually really well. I remember my pacer, Dylan, said, "Oh yeah, this gal Courtney is, she's quite a ways ahead." I'm like, "Wow, that's fantastic."
Yeah.
And he's like, she has the 24-hour record, American time. I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing." And she kicked everyone's ass. Mine by about 20 hours. Second place by 10 hours. I think Sean was second place.
Sean Nakamura. Yeah.
So then and it was 50 hours again with Moab?
No, it was 59 hours.
59 hours. Okay, so 59 hours with Moab for a cumulative time of 165?
Yes.
So you cut off 40 hours.
Yeah.
That is insane. So what do you attribute that to? How come you were that much faster?
I know a lot of people like make fun of me for this, but like I contribute a lot of it to my diet.
Okay.
So I do the keto, low carb, like OFM, strategic carb timing. Like it's a mix of different things.
And your website is
low carb runner.
Is low carb-runner.com. Low-carb-runner.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I started doing this 2017, and that was the year I did the triple for the first time. But like when I started it, I was still in that awkward phase where I like missed a lot of foods. So like I used races as an excuse to like eat like crap in between the races. So in 2017, like for some reason I loved fried food. So I like fried chicken, fried cheese curds, onion rings, and I went to town on that, and I was super inflamed. Like I hardly ran, and like I just felt like I was just trying to survive at those races. And then towards the middle of 2018, like I really like learned to appreciate the style of eating. Mm-hmm. And so like in 2019, I wasn't cheating. Like I was really sticking low on my carbs and eating like good, clean, not junk food. And like I was able to start running like a week after each race.
So no inflammation.
No inflammation at all. And so I mean, it could be coincidence, but I just think really eating clean.
Probably not. Yeah, entirely coincidence.
That's my philosophy, but I didn't get tested or anything.
Huh. That is a huge change, though.
Yeah.
I mean, how old are you?
I'm about 31.
About 31.
About to turn 31. That's what I meant.
Happy almost birthday.
Thank you.
How funny. So then, well, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. Triple Crown was amazing. I was following it because I was following the races, and Dax was in there each time and supporting him as best I could. After the pacing, the first one, he's like, "Do you think I should do the all three? Do you think I could? I'm like, well, do you want to do all three? How are you feeling? So I really want to. I'm like, sure, go for it. I think you potentially could. And he went off, to his credit. First 200 was Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Finished in fifth. And then followed you in the Triple Crown and got a distant second, although still second place on what is arguably one of the most audacious ultra running crowns you can get. So this year, COVID happens. You had races planned.
Mm-hmm.
What races got canceled for you?
The biggest one was Badwater. Yeah, like a week before it was supposed to happen.
I remember actually you trying to figure out whether it was going to go or not.
Yeah, so they emailed us like 10 days before the race and was like, hey, final permit's approved, it's gonna happen. And I like bought all my gear for it, and then like 2 days later they said an earthquake happened, which like damaged the Whitney portal where the finish is, and then apparently like within that 2-day range, like COVID cases spiked in Yale County where the race was. So they emailed us like 2 days later and said never mind, and that was that.
That's frustrating. Although interestingly, here today, it's hot in Moab right now. It's just really warm. Right now it's probably mid-80s, maybe a little higher.
I think someone said it was 90 earlier.
It's hot here, and there's been a lot of attrition. There have been 200 roughly start, and how many? I think probably a quarter drop, maybe.
At least.
And this is mile 72. Front runners came in quite late.
Yeah.
And
3 or 4 hours late.
two front runners. We have Michel. What's his last name? Gragan.
Gragilia?
Mi-
I think it's like Mikel Gragilia.
Michel Gragilia,
Yeah.
who won
Badwater.
Badwater, and David Goggins, who has also performed. I think, did he win Badwater, or he
I
came?
think he
I think he might have
won.
been second at one
He
year.
did well at Badwater. That's all I remember.
So the two runners that are up at the front right now are heat experienced,
Yeah.
and that's, I think, killing some people here this time.
Well, they even looked spent last night when they came in.
Yeah. Well, Michel had some energy. He was doing okay.
Yeah.
David just came in, said his number, turned around, and went to his crew. So we don't really know how he's doing. Maybe we'll see him later. So, Badwater's canceled. Any other races that you had on?
So I was signed up for the Bear 100, which is like a local 100 where I'm from, that I was pretty excited for, but I ended up, so it happened, but I dropped that one so I could do the Colorado Trail.
But before the Bear, you and Ben went out
Oh, yeah,
and,
they
and
did.
did the Brawl.
Yeah.
So explain what the Brawl is, because this is another fantastic story of, okay, plan A is not working, so
Yeah.
we got to put together a plan B, and plan B could arguably be more crazy than plan A. So what's the Brawl?
So I was doing a lot of road running in prep for Badwater, and there was like one day when it's like, Ben, I just really need to do like a good like 50K in the mountains. You want to join me? So he came. We were doing a 50K together, and Ben, he's always looking for like some crazy project to do. He's nuts. And so like he asked me on that. He's like, dude, I'm trying to think of a project. Like I'm kind of out of ideas. Do you have an idea? And I was like, well, I've always had this like cool idea of like trying to connect like two of Utah's most iconic hundreds, the Bear 100 and the Wasatch 100. Bear 100 is this northern Utah, like partially in Idaho, and then the Wasatch 100 goes through the Wasatch Mountains through Salt Lake and ends near Park City. And like I've always just like looked at maps and I'm like, you know, the Bear 100, the Wasatch 100, there's 200 miles, and like in between it looks like it could get like close to another 100 and make like a 300-mile route. So I like told Ben about how I've always thought that was cool, and then it was like that night he's like, hey, I'm doing it in a month, do you want to do it with me?
So again, this is audacious because I don't think there's a 300 mile per se. Oh, except for the Untamed
Yeah.
330, which did it happen? Didn't
Got
happen this year.
canceled because of COVID, yeah.
Didn't happen this year. But this one is also like the Untamed 330 is 75% dirt roads and pavement roads. It's just not. It's not a real trail race in my view, but this is two pretty brawny trail races back to
Yeah.
back.
It was mostly single track.
And you survive. And Dax went out for that too,
Oh,
but
yeah.
he got kicked out at 100 miles. His leg started to.
Yeah, he did
bug.
the whole. So yeah, the route is like we did the Bear 100 backwards. So we started at the finish and finished at the start, and then we ran a connecting 100-mile route.
Was that decent? Like trail, everything?
Yeah, so there was like a 10-mile road section.
Okay.
And it's actually the Great Western Trail.
Oh.
Yeah, a lot of this was the Great Western Trail. But there's a 10-mile road section, and then the majority of it after that single track. So we did the connecting 100, and then we did the Wasatch 100. And when Ben said I'm doing it, like, Badwater hadn't canceled yet.
Oh my.
So I was like, let me do Badwater and we'll talk about it. But then, like, it was like 3 or 4 days later, Badwater canceled. And I texted him that night. I was like, okay, yeah, let's do this. And then Dax heard about it. Dax asked to join, and I had a buddy who said he'd wanted to pace us for a little bit, and he ended up doing the whole Bear 100.
Really?
Yeah, that was his first time doing the Bear course.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it was a cool route. It was like 301 miles with a little over 60,000 feet of gain.
And so the inception of this idea was basically you guys having a chat and saying, hey, this could potentially work. And then cool. Ben saying, I'm going to do it because I looked it up on a map, and then you just jumped in?
Yep. And he suggested a name. So in Utah, we have a route that someone created called the Whirl, which is the Wasatch Ridge Ultimate Link Up. And it's something crazy, like 40,000 feet of gain and like less than 100 miles. Like,
nice.
It's super steep. And so like I was trying to think of like some cool link up acronym, and that's it. So the Bear 100 goes through the Bear River Mountain Range. Wasatch 100 is the Wasatch Mountain Range. So I was just able to like quickly think of like the Brawl, the Bear River and Wasatch Leaf Up, and so that's what we ended up calling it. And
that's a good acronym.
yeah, it's pretty sweet. Brawl. And Ben like has
will you do it again?
So that was my first time doing like a big group project where like you stop when other people need to stop.
Yeah.
So I'll admit, like, I was getting antsy, and like the first night we had like a little powwow where I was just like guys, I don't know if I can do this. Like in my mind I thought we were gonna do this faster, and it's just really hard for me to like dial it back. And so like
we'll talk more a little bit about that in a few minutes.
So like I was trying so hard not to let that eat me up because I just wanted to have fun, but there's this part of me where I was just like, it's like, man, I really want to know how fast I did check.
Yeah, me too. All right, technical difficulties. The first SD card error on this. Now my phone has stopped, so we've been talking for we had such a good conversation that we just missed, but I'll wrap up the Brawl. So they finished the Brawl, and Mike's next project brought him to Colorado. He's going to take a crack at the Colorado Trail, which is a 485-mile route from Durango to Denver with about 90,000 feet of climbing. And the record had been 8 days, 7 hours.
Yep.
And he wanted to try and crack that. And interestingly enough, another Solomon athlete, Courtney, had taken a crack at it just the month before, like a month earlier.
A month exactly, officially.
She went out and basically got pneumonia and had high altitude issues, had 70% oxygen, and had to pull at 300 miles.
Yeah,
310.
Yeah.
So we've already known that arguably one of the best ultra runners in the country, male or female, ran into distress, which can happen, especially when you pull audacious goals like trying to set an FKT. So you had an FKT, by the way, is fastest known time, sort of an informal record that people are now starting to keep track of on trails like that. So you had A goal, B goal. What was A goal?
A goal is to do it in under a week, so 7 days.
Okay. So cut a day and 7 hours, 31 hours off, or
just 8 days, 6 hours, get the record.
Cut off 1 minute, he'd be happy for the B goal. So we all showed up at in Durango, and Mike does the first section on his own, cruises it. Everybody's scared to go with him because nobody wants to get dropped or be the person who's not. So he just went and stretched his legs out. It was a good section.
Yeah, it looks a lot like where I'm from, in Utah. Just like covered with green trees, nice smooth dirt trail and rivers. It was beautiful.
So Mike gets there, and his biggest fan ever just happens to be on the trail, and she tells him of pending doom, right? What's the deal?
So a week prior, Colorado had like a freak snowstorm, like inches throughout the state.
More than inches in the elevation. Yeah.
And so that was my biggest fear going into the FKT attempt, was like how much snow was up there on those high altitude spots, which was like the whole trail. So we get there, I'm slightly hopeful, but then this lady's there who's through hiking the trail, and she says that basically I was getting ready to go up a pass, and she's like, yeah, at the top of the pass it's snowy, from there to Silverton, which was like another 90 miles.
So Mike's in the chair, we're getting everything sorted out. Matt's going to go with you, but then he changes his mind. So Dax scrambles to get his stuff together, and Mike says, hey, can you get me my Alpine shoes?
Yeah.
Because they better waterproof, right?
Yeah, they have a waterproof gator built around the shoe.
And okay, no problem. It's in that East Bay bag. So we're looking for the East Bay bag. No East Bay bag at all. None. So I was like, it's got to be there. The day before, that's his truck down there, actually, the silver one. That truck had some bags in the back, and someone grabbed a bag of 12 pairs of size 11 Solomon shoes that were all broken in perfectly for this trail.
And those were all my, like, I just joined Solomon this year, so
Yep.
that was all of my collection of Solomon gone.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And that got in your head a little bit.
Yeah, and I think if that lady wasn't there, I probably would have shown it a little bit more.
Yeah.
I was trying to remain collected. But thankfully, like, my crew was just like, hey, this sucks. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. You're obviously not going to drop here. It's only mile 20, so just throw your shoes back on, get to the next spot, and we'll have it figured out for you. And so that's what I did.
This is where Ben proved his worth. He went into town in Durango. Do you remember the name of the running store?
Durango Running Company.
The Durango Running Company. He walks in, he says, this is the situation. Came away with, I think, 5 pairs of size 11 Solomons.
Yeah.
They were unfortunately not broken in,
Yeah.
but that saved the day to some extent.
That was the solution.
So this is a huge goal to throw out there, to try and get this FKT. And the reason you're doing this is because your Badwater race has been canceled.
And just like Courtney DeWalter going for it, like, kind of, like, I've always wanted to do an FKT, and COVID this year, like, I lost my job, and it's like, now's the best time to do a multi-day FKT because I don't have to, like, take time off from work. So, and where Courtney started it, she's a Solomon teammate and a friend, and unfortunately I wasn't able to do it. Like, I just felt like this urge to get out there and finish what she started, and she, like, was super supportive and said to go for it. Like, she thinks that I could take a couple of days off of the FKT, and so between her encouragement and me not having a job and just feeling in shape and excited about a multi-day adventure, like, I decided I wanted to do it, and then did it 4 weeks later. Like, there wasn't a lot of preparation that went into it.
That Mike is selling himself short a little bit. There's been years of preparation because you don't just go, hey, I'm going to do this thing. He's like one of the few people who you think, you know what, legit chance at going out to do this. So I went out to help pace and support. Courtney pulled at 310 miles.
Yep.
She had kind of pneumonia and 70% oxygen content in her blood instead of 90 something.
And ironically, that's where my wheels kind of started to fall off. That was Twin Lakes, when you were like saying that's where you figured that would be my make or break spot.
Yeah.
That's where she had to pull.
So I ended up pacing him through 6 different sections. And by the way, there'll be a video of this that Matt Van Horn puts together on behalf of, it's Kogalo, correct?
No, I'm actually...
Oh, you're doing it?
Yeah, I'm doing this.
Ah, sweet.
Well, and a bunch of my sponsors ended up chipping in.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
And the brawl that he did, the 300 miler, also has a video, and I'll make sure to link to that in the description, so you can go and see what happened. Eventually, there'll be a pacing video as well that'll be much longer and more crudely put together, but you'll be able to see that at some point. So, Mike, I went out thinking, oh, this is going to be cool to be able to support, hang out with the crew, and pace some of this section, because I haven't run in that country at all, and it sounded beautiful. So the first section we went out was like...
It's one of my favorites.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
It was Elk something, or Elk Creek?
We left Mullis Pass and then went to Stony Pass.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was amazing. And there was snow, there was landslide debris, there was,
Avalanches,
yeah. And at that point, Mike a couple times had sort of said, "Oh man, you know, my knee is kind of hurting." And I'm like, "Well, that's something you're going to have to put up with for a while."
Mile 80.
Yeah, mile 80, 400 miles to go. It's funny because we've got part of our job here at the aid station is to encourage people to get back out. Oh, my knees hurt. I'm like, dude, I just seen a dude run 400 extra miles on knees that hurt and survived. So,
Not super fat, but it survived.
yeah, and his knee is recovering still.
Yeah.
But this was, well, how long ago did we finish? Did you finish?
It'd be 3 weeks and a couple days.
So that first section's pretty good. We do another section. He's still moving quite well. And I'm going out and doing another adventure and then rejoining the crew because Ben's got a number of pacers in place. And Mike kept asking me, "Are you coming back?" And I didn't commit 100%. I just said, "Well, we'll see how you're doing." Because for me, if you're taking, like, going into the unknown, which is, okay, the brawl took you 4 days?
Yeah, 4.5.
4.5 days. So 5.5 days to 6.5 days is new terrain. If you can get through into the 5th or 6th day and still be moving forward and have all that in your rear view, then I think it's like that's the real thing. And the section that he's talking about is one where it was at night, it was cold, and
I missed my family.
yeah, and your family was there.
Yeah.
Do you know how much sleep you had in the whole thing?
I calculated like 5 hours is my guess.
5 hours. So to give it away, he finished, and he didn't hit the 7-day goal, like under 7, which I think was ridiculously audacious. But he hit 7 days and 13 hours, which is amazing because that cracked off, is it 18 hours?
Yes.
18 hours off the fastest known time. That is a substantial chunk. So this night we came partway through, and there was like the pull of the bed was real and
So
strong.
tired.
But the whole crew was like, "No, you got to keep going." 'Cause there wasn't even a planned aid station right there.
No, they just showed up.
So we go out of the aid station, and I can tell Mike is in a state because for the first time he said, "You lead." I'm like, okay. And so I wanted to keep going, but not have too much of a gap, and also not have too small of a gap because then I know I'd be holding him up. And there were a few times where you needed,
Sleep.
and when I say sleep, I mean he laid down on the dirt face down for approximately 2 or 3 minutes.
I'd ask for a minute and you'd give me 2.
I give it to you. I was very generous.
Yeah. Double what I asked for.
Yeah. And we're going along. I remember he stops all of a sudden and he looks off the side of the trail. Like, "You all right?" And what'd you see?
Was it 2 monkeys? 2 monkeys on a 4-wheeler?
Yeah, he's like, "I just saw some monkeys on a 4-wheeler. I don't think that's real." I'm like, no, it's not. But that's pretty awesome that you saw that.
Yeah.
So we get through that, and I think it's close to morning when we bring you in.
Yeah. When I woke up from my nap, the sun was coming up.
So that to me broke the back of it. I'm like, okay, he's gonna do this. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
and I
I'm
had a
coming.
good push on that next section too.
And then you had the best pacer of all for the last 16.
Oh yeah.
Who
Yeah,
was that?
My wife. That was a good surprise. That was her furthest stage she's ever ran.
So Sarah ran 16 miles at the end.
In any of you ultra fans, you know she still has a ton of ultras because I used to work for ultra, but she ran like this is like tough, like rocky, rooty, steep Colorado trail, and she ran. I didn't even realize this till the end. I was like, oh my gosh, what the freak are you doing? But she ran it in like some of Ultra's thinnest road shoes.
Oh, really?
It was like one of the first pair I ever got her, so like they were super worn down, like no cushion, super flexible. Like she had to be feeling every rock, and she did 16 miles in those old thin road shoes.
I love how the guy finishes 485 miles in record time, was bragging on his wife finishing in old shoes. I think it's
Old
great.
road shoes. She has so many different shoes. Like, it blew my mind that that's what she picked.
So
But I guess she didn't decide till she was there that she was going to do that. So I don't know if she had other shoes packed.
it was actually a remarkable effort. There were a lot of people who came together. They had people show up who you coach. Chris showed up.
Chris and Garrett,
And Garrett, yeah, they both showed up and they helped out. We had,
Ryan.
yeah, Ryan was there.
Yeah.
There were a lot of people at the end who showed up. So it was very much a group effort of get Mike to the end. But
It
there's
really was.
only one dude who put all the pieces together. You almost feel a little guilty booting him out of camp or telling him to get up from a nap or just to keep going. But I mean,
That's what Pacers do.
me personally, it was one of the most impressive things I said. That word audacious is a word that I'm like, dude, this whole project is a massive undertaking. Like, to think, okay, yeah, we're just gonna go out and do this. My hat is off to you for finishing that.
Thank you. I
That was
appreciate you pacing 100 miles of it with me.
That was totally my pleasure. That was fun to be out there.
And I apologize if I got snappy, specifically about those grapes. A lot.
So and I don't really care as a pacer. You can growl at me or whatever. And when my pacers come out, that's the same thing. I'll be like, look, usually I'm a pretty nice guy, but I can't be responsible for everything I'm going to say or do during this time. So I'm just going to say in advance, I appreciate that you're here so much. And sorry if I say anything. Mike's snappy is like about the nicest snappy you could ever
So I
be.
didn't feel that way.
All I was trying to do is make sure calories go in, because the one thing you want to make sure when your runner is out there is that you are drinking and you are eating, because you want to be the guy whose shift it is when he runs out of calories or bonks or gets dehydrated. So it's like, hey, try this. That was pretty funny. I think after that section, Ben asked me, has he been eating? I'm like, yeah, what'd he eat? I'm like, well, he had some of my grapes. He had my date things. He had my figs. Remember all that?
Yeah.
like all the stuff you had in your pack. Like, I can't eat any of this. But
Yeah.
other people's food is sometimes the best. Chips,
Those
salt,
chips
and
you
vinegar.
gave me,
Oh yeah.
Those Don Julio chips or whatever they were.
Yeah.
Those are so good.
So okay. So what else you got on your calendar right now? You just chilling out, or are you thinking about other things?
If my quad heals, I'd like to do Desert Solstice.
When?
If it heals in time.
Okay.
'Cause Desert Solstice is in 2 months.
Okay.
So Desert Solstice potentially. If not that, then I'm not thinking of. Like, I want to do the Appalachian Trail now, but I don't know if I'll.
Seriously?
That's a lot of time.
That is a lot of
I
time.
just got a new job. It's about working with like a nonprofit, so maybe I could like make those two things mesh and like raise money for the nonprofit and do the Appalachian Trail, but I'd really like to try the Appalachian Trail someday.
The AT Trail has been broken a couple times over the last year. Scott Jurek broke it, Carl Meltzer broke it, and then Scott Jurek broke it. Or which one? What was the order?
It was Scott first, because Scott helped Carl break it.
Scott's got the record, and then Carl got the record, and I think it's been broken again, actually.
Pretty sure somebody broke Carl's record like 2 days after. It sounded ridiculously close to Carl's record.
So it's like 45 days-ish or something like
It's
that.
between 42 and 45 days.
Between 42
yeah.
and 45. Well, I mean, if you decide to do that, that is certainly an audacious goal, and some of the best ultra runners have taken a piece of that, but that's a tough one.
Yeah, it looks tough.
So, context-wise, 7 days and 13 hours. You're at. Did you work it out 60? How many miles a day?
Yeah, it was like 68.
68 miles a day over some pretty serious terrain. That's a noteworthy achievement. So, audacious. To wrap it back up and to bring it back, because I know Mike wants to get in the road, and I need to go and pace my friend Wes in the latter part of this race. I would encourage people strongly to think about what it is that gets them excited and put out some sort of goal, some sort of plan that is bigger than you might otherwise do, because these audacious goals are what lead to inspiring people, new benchmark performances, and all that sort of thing. Lastly, do you have you want to give us your social media?
Yeah, just low carb or low carb runner. The low carb runner on Instagram, and then low carb dash runner for my website.
Okay. The low carb runner on Instagram and low carb dash runner on website.
Yeah.
All right. Well, dude, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Even though it's a little herky jerky in a weird setting, I wanted to get this one done. Hopefully, we get to have a good run sometime in the near future.
Appalachian Trail.
That's what I'm talking about. Although I'll probably have to wait until next season.
So you're down here for 40 minutes right now?
Do the whole trail?
Yeah.
That'd be a hard one. I could support it. I don't think I could hit the record myself. You probably could. Touche. That's a perfect finish. Take care, folks. Thanks.